In the final week of his life, Moe Howard, the last surviving member of the legendary comedy trio, the Three Stooges, finally decided to speak about something that had haunted him for decades: the truth about his brother Curly Howard. For years, fans of the Stooges laughed endlessly at their slapstick humor, the pokes, the eye jabs, and the famous nuke 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 that became part of pop culture. But few people knew the heartbreak and tragedy that took place behind those moments of laughter. Moe had carried a heavy burden in his heart for years, one he never fully shared with the public until he was nearing death. When he finally broke, his silence, what he revealed wasn't just a touching family story. It was a heartbreaking confession about love, loss, and guilt. Moe spoke about how fame had taken a toll on his brother, how the laughter that entertained millions had slowly destroyed Curly from the inside. It was a story that changed the way people looked at comedy forever, because it showed that even the funniest people can carry the deepest pain behind their smiles. To understand the tragedy, you have to go back to where it all began. Moe Howard, Larry Fine, and Curly Howard were part of a comedy group that shaped American humor for generations, the Three Stooges. Moe was the leader, the tough, bossy one who often kept the group on track. Larry was the calm and confused middleman, always caught between Moe's anger and Curly's wild energy. And then there was Curly, the lovable, childlike, and hilarious brother whose every move brought laughter to millions. Curly, born Jerome Lester Horwitz in Brooklyn, New York, wasn't supposed to be part of the act at first. When their older brother Shemp Howard left the team in 1932, Moe and Larry needed someone to fill the gap. Curly wanted the job, but he was shy and quiet off stage. He wasn't known for comedy, and even Moe doubted he could handle it. Determined to prove himself, Curly shaved his hair and mustache to look funnier, a decision that changed his life forever. Once he stepped in front of the camera, something magical happened. His natural timing, goofy sounds, and playful movements made audiences roar with laughter. The world instantly fell in love with Curly. His voice, his silly noises, and his spontaneous behavior made him an icon. He didn't need scripts. His humor came from pure instinct, from his heart. Offstage, however, Curly Howard was a completely different man. Away from the lights and cameras, he was quiet, gentle, and often insecure. The fame that brought joy to millions made him uncomfortable. He avoided interviews and public appearances because he didn't enjoy attention. His friends and co-stars said he was one of the kindest people they had ever met, always helping others, always smiling, but rarely sharing his own struggles. Moe once described him as a gentle soul trapped in a world too harsh for him. Hollywood can be a tough place, even for strong people, and Curly was far from tough. He loved animals, enjoyed painting, and preferred quiet nights at home to big parties. But the fast-paced life of show business didn't allow him much rest. The Stooges were becoming more popular every year, and the studio demanded more and more from them. They performed physically exhausting routines, constant falls, slaps, and stunts that left bruises and injuries. The public saw the laughter, but behind the scenes the Stooges were working non-stop, pushing their bodies to the limit. For Curly, this constant physical pressure began to take a heavy toll on his health, both mentally and physically. As the years passed, Moe began noticing changes in his brother. Curly wasn't the same lively performer he used to be. He would forget his lines, lose focus during filming, and sometimes appear exhausted even before the day started. His famous spark, the childlike joy that made everyone laugh, was fading. The studio, Columbia Pictures, didn't care about his health. They saw Curly as their biggest moneymaker and refused to give him a break. The war years made the public desperate for laughter, and the Three Stooges were in huge demand. Despite obvious signs of illness, Curly was pushed to continue performing. He filmed more than 90 short comedies while his health kept getting worse. By the early 1940s, Curly was in his late 30s but looked much older. He gained weight, suffered from high blood pressure, and started experiencing mini-strokes, though, at the time, doctors didn't fully understand what was happening. During breaks, he would sit quietly, sweating and staring blankly at the floor. Moe knew something was terribly wrong, but the studio turned a blind eye. In 1946, during the filming of Half-Wit's Holiday, tragedy struck. Curly suddenly collapsed. On set, he had suffered a massive stroke at just 42 years old. That day, Moe later said, felt like losing his brother even before he truly died. After the stroke, Curly was no longer the same man. The once energetic, funny, and lovable performer could barely move or speak. He was paralyzed on one side and struggled to express himself. The doctors told Moe that Curly's career was over. But the hardest part wasn't the end of Curly's career. It was watching his brother slowly lose his identity. The studio replaced Curly with their older brother, Shemp. But the magic was gone. Even Shemp admitted that Curly's energy could never be replaced. Meanwhile, Curly's health continued to decline. He suffered more strokes and became weaker with each passing year. He spent most of his time in hospitals and nursing homes, far away from the laughter he once created. In 1949, he made a brief cameo in the Stooges' short Malice in the Palace, but fans could tell he was no longer the Curly they remembered. Moe visited him often, staying loyal as a brother, but each visit was painful. Curly's once bright eyes looked lost and confused. Sometimes, he didn't even recognize Moe. It was like looking into the face of a stranger who used to be his brother. Moe carried guilt that he couldn't save him, that he had allowed fame and the studio's demands to destroy Curly's spirit. In the years after his stroke, Curly's condition worsened. Fans thought he was simply taking a break, but the truth was much darker. Curly was battling both physical disability and mental decline. He couldn't accept that his career was over. Moe later revealed that Curly would often cry and ask when he could return to filming. He didn't understand that his body could no longer handle it. His memory began to fail, and his emotions became unstable. Curly's weight increased rapidly as he sank into depression. He isolated himself and became suspicious of people around him, even those who cared for him deeply. His personal life was also in ruins. He had been married 4 times, but none of his relationships lasted. His changing moods and confusion made it hard for anyone to stay close. By the late 1940s, doctors decided he needed long-term care in an institution. The medicines of that era could do little to help, and his once sharp, creative mind began to fade. The studios and Moe tried to keep this truth hidden to protect Curly's dignity and the public image of the Three Stooges. Fans continued sending letters, unaware that their favorite comedian was slowly slipping away from reality. While the world laughed at reruns of the Three Stooges, Moe Howard lived with an unbearable sadness. He visited Curly often, but each visit broke his heart a little more. "I had to smile for the cameras while watching my brother die in slow motion," Moe once said. That line captures the emotional weight he carried. He had been both a brother and a boss to Curly, and he felt responsible for his suffering. When the studio demanded more work, Moe went along with it, partly because he didn't want to lose their livelihood, but mostly because he didn't realize how sick Curly truly was. By the early 1950s, Curly had suffered several more strokes, each leaving him weaker. Even then, when Moe visited, Curly would sometimes smile. Somewhere deep inside, the spark of the man who loved to make people laugh was still there. On January 18, 1952, Curly Howard passed away at just 48 years old. The world was stunned. Most fans had no idea how sick he had been because the studio had hidden the truth for years. People mourned the clown they saw on screen, unaware of the pain he carried off screen. Moe never truly forgave himself for keeping the truth from the public. For 2 decades after Curly's death, Moe Howard rarely spoke about his brother's suffering. He kept the pain inside, focusing on keeping the Stooges' legacy alive. But as he grew older, the guilt became too heavy to bear. In the early 1970s, while battling lung cancer, Moe finally opened up about the truth. In one of his final interviews, he admitted, "I should have said something sooner." He revealed that Curly wasn't just exhausted. He was being pushed to work while suffering from strokes. The studio cared only about profits, not people. "He was having strokes," Moe said quietly, "and they still had him throwing pies and falling downstairs." Those words captured the cruelty of Hollywood at that time, a place where laughter came at the expense of human health. Moe's confession changed how many fans viewed their favorite comedians. It reminded the world that behind every joke, there might be pain. Behind every smile, a hidden struggle. Moe died shortly after that interview in 1975, taking with him decades of memories, both joyful and tragic. But by finally speaking out, he honored Curly's memory in the most honest way possible. When Moe Howard looked back on his long career, he often said that laughter was both a blessing and a curse. The Three Stooges brought happiness to millions during some of the darkest periods in American history. The Great Depression, World War II, and the years that followed. People turned to comedy as an escape from hardship, and the Stooges became a symbol of hope and silliness when the world felt heavy. Yet behind the curtain, the performers themselves were carrying pain that no audience could imagine. Moe used to say that every joke came with a price, and for Curly, that price was his life. Fame had given them everything: success, recognition, and financial security. But it also took away their health, peace, and freedom. In his last interviews, Moe spoke about the loneliness of fame and how show business can quietly destroy the very people it celebrates. He said that when the cameras turned off, the laughter stopped, and the silence was often unbearable. Moe carried a heavy responsibility throughout his career. As the leader of the Stooges, he wasn't just a performer. He was also the one who managed schedules, handled studio negotiations, and tried to protect his partners. But the studio system of the 1930s and 1940s gave actors little control. Columbia Pictures owned the rights to their films and decided how much work they would do and when. Moe later revealed that he had begged the studio several times to give Curly a break, but the producers refused, claiming audiences wanted the funny one. That rejection haunted Moe. He said that every time Curly stumbled or looked exhausted on set, a part of him felt guilty. "I was supposed to be his big brother," he said sadly, "but I couldn't protect him from Hollywood." His leadership had become a double-edged sword. It kept the team together, but also tied him to the decisions that hurt his brother. When he finally spoke out near the end of his life, he wasn't just telling Curly's story. He was confessing his own regrets as a man who had tried to do everything right, but felt he had failed the person he loved most. Before Curly Howard came along, slapstick comedy was already popular, but he transformed it into something magical. His timing, expressions, and sounds were completely original. He had the rare ability to turn simple actions, like turning his head or barking like a dog, into unforgettable comedy moments. Film historians often say that Curly's humor was pure instinct. He never rehearsed much because he didn't need to. Everything came naturally, like music flowing from an instrument. His improvisations became iconic: "Nuke, nuke, nuke," "Woo, woo, woo," and the high-pitched giggles that children around the world copied. Yet what made him so great also made his decline even sadder. Watching such a naturally gifted man lose control of his body was heartbreaking. Moe once compared Curly's performances to watching lightning strike. You couldn't predict it, but when it happened, the whole room lit up. Decades after his death, comedians such as Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, and even modern YouTube creators have cited Curly as a source of inspiration. His style proved that humor didn't need words, it only needed heart. After Curly's first stroke in 1946, Moe did everything he could to stay close to him. He visited hospitals, wrote letters to doctors, and tried to get him the best care possible. But medical science in those days couldn't reverse the kind of damage Curly had suffered. The more Moe saw him, the more helpless he felt. He once described visiting Curly as walking into a room full of ghosts. The laughter, the energy, and the sparkle that once filled Curly's eyes were gone. Sometimes Moe would sit beside his brother for hours, holding his hand in silence. There were moments when Curly would look up and smile faintly, as if remembering a joke or a line from one of their old films. Those small gestures kept Moe going, even though they broke his heart every time. To the public, the Three Stooges were still alive and well on screen. But for Moe, every film rerun felt like reopening an old wound. The man who once made people laugh until they cried was now a silent shell of himself. Moe's visits became less frequent, not because he stopped caring, but because each goodbye felt like a funeral. Moe's late-life confession also shed light on the darker side of Hollywood in its golden age. Studios owned their stars like property. Performers were overworked, underpaid, and often ignored when they became sick or exhausted. There were no mental health resources, no counselors, and little compassion. For the studios, the show always had to go on. Moe said the system treated comedians like machines. If one broke, they'd simply replace him with another. After Curly's illness, Columbia quickly brought back Shemp to keep profits flowing. The studio publicly downplayed Curly's condition, claiming he was recovering and would soon return. They even reused old footage of him in short films to keep his image alive. This corporate coldness shocked Moe, but at the time, he felt powerless to fight it. Only years later did he realize how deeply that decision hurt his brother. Curly never stopped asking when he could return, and Moe never had the heart to